Big Bear AI is still holding under $4 a share, but is it going to be there for much longer, or are we going to see new levels above that $4 price point? Well, the stock has had its runs up to $10.50 earlier this year, and we started covering it back in October, November, right around $1 a share. We've seen that it's pushing back above this 200-day moving average and then recently sold off. And it has this new pattern develop that we can identify. If you can see the trends recently, it had a low of about a $2.30 price point here after the sell-off with the broader market and recovered 100% up to $4.80. The AI and defense market, which is what BBAI is in, is a fast-growing market. They have similar contracts to Palantir, for example, or Leidos. They have the same on-demand government contracts that would be given to Palantir, and they're also a partner with Palantir. And so they specialize in AI decision intelligence, specifically in defense, in transportation, as well as even a little bit in the cybersecurity, as well as a little bit of war and ports of entry, the entries and exits into the United States, both on the sea and on the land in the sea. So you got this consistent uptrend that was happening here since April. It was very consistent, and it was getting rejected there at that rising resistance. It was getting rejected here about 375 into that 430, and then at 480 it got rejected. After this very consistent trend for about 2 months, it recently broke back below that trend as of last week and has been consolidating down here and selling off a little bit. So we saw that 480 price point, and then we recently see it get down to just about $3.60. So there's a previous support here that's pretty much this, it's a previous resistance as well. So you got previous support right here. You see that support. So that was in January of 2025. Support. You got resistance into March, and then resistance there into April, and then some support levels that it was acting as in May and June. So this level right here at $3.50, we've talked about it quite a lot on the channel as a level at which it's going to most likely have some support. So from the technical perspective, that's how things look. We'll go over the news, the fundamentals, the charts as well, and also the financials. When we're looking at the different reasons that BBAI has potential, one of the reasons is going to be for this here. As you can tell, let's see, BBAI stock. There we go. The $1 billion market cap is one thing, but they got a lot of hype articles and things like that. So we're not going to pay attention to the hype articles. However, in the news perspective, they recently secured this collaboration with Vigilix, and it's advancing AI technologies in the UAE. And then you also have this recent report where they just came up short in their revenue. So before we get into the financials, let's take a look at Big Bear AI from a news perspective. From the product standpoint, there's a few industries they're in. They're in homeland and border security. They're in defense, intelligence, travel and trade, and manufacturing and supply chain, and even a little bit of some potential Golden Dome space partnerships that could play nicely for their company. But the main contracts they have, Department of Defense, if we go Homeland and Border Security, they got the Pentagon they work with. They have a $160 million contract with Army. And then you also have, you can see computer visions, biometrics for public safety, even cyber here for Space Crest. So they're starting to get into some space tech. And the main focus, at least the most validated part of their markets and what they do here, if you go to defense, you could kind of see where they work. But the main, most validated part, you got predictive intelligence, is going to be their travel and trade. So at the entries let's say, into the United States at the border here, they have this thing, it's called True Face. And essentially, it looks like this: someone walks through, they scan the face, and it can tell who they are. It can tell where they're from. It can tell if they're alive or not. It can also even be able to have mask compatible recognition, so people wearing masks. It has very, very high accuracy, and we've actually seen it. This is how it looks, and it's at most airports. Why is that interesting? Well, if you look at their VeriScan, this is the technology behind it. You take a look at, let's go industries. We'll go travel and trade. I guess I got to navigate a little bit here, and you go to VeriScan. This is what it looks like. They scan your face, they're able to identify a person. And if you think about it, TSA already does this. The only difference is this computer program uses large machine learning and AI intelligence to identify different threats, different connections, and different reasons why or why not a person should pass through the security. Now, the trusted companies you have here, definitely U.S. Customs, Border Protection, but you have Delta as well as Port of Vancouver, SoftPoint. One of the big ones we saw was Denver International Airport. I'm getting some market feedback from you guys, which, while the money being spent on AI defense is very apparent, it's a good market, the number one thing we look for is real world usage. And I've seen this firsthand. I've gotten my face scanned, so I know it's legit. And that's kind of the news. There's not a whole lot of news other than recently that UAE partnership, which is interesting. So they're not just working with maybe US, but they're working with partnership. They also partnered with a company, Analogic, that is supposed to streamline the partnerships and more contracts for them to get related to airport security. So they have that going for them. When it comes to their financial results, we can look at a couple things here. The reality is they just came up short in their last earnings. Their quarterly income statement was a little bit down on revenue, but their net income was better. They paid down some debts, but also they said in their earnings report they were expecting more contracts that should have been in their account that they weren't able to report. So that's good news. Balance sheet looked good. Overall, the total assets increasing with the liabilities decreasing. So financials really look okay. We'd like to see this next quarter have a positive reflection of that their net income does continue to improve year over year. It's up 51% year over year, but we'd like to see the improvements in their year over year change in revenue increase as well. So that brings us to the chart. The next moves for BBAI. As you can see, it's holding this $3.50 price point. What we're looking for is this resistance right here. So there's a resistance level right here, it looks like, at 375 resistance right there. So this is kind of the next level we're looking at. And what we'd like to see is it hold this 350 and potentially make this swing next week. Now, it might sell down more. It might even hit that 350 before doing so. It is holding below a 200-day moving average where it's getting rejected. But even with a broader market sell-off or something like that, the industry in which they're in would make sense that they would still see momentum, given that they're in AI and defense, and the US most likely will continue to spend in those areas. When it comes to their 10% margin for profit here on BBAI, it looks like that's pretty clear, but again, still getting rejected, a little bit bearish there. While I like to see that recovery can make sense, it's a 10% margin for profit. There's also this overall, since that peak back there about 2 weeks ago, you have this trend now where it's like getting rejected and getting rejected. And what you don't want to see is like this new downtrend where it sells down below, maybe even hits that $3 range, because there is a support there at about $3. So if we see it sell down even further, then that's not going to be too hot. But it's part of the long term, looks good, but the short term, it's part of it. It's the volatility. We're still going to hold our long-term positions at that $2.80 price point, but we're still going to look for some dips and some potential shorter-term trades here in the Robinhood account here on Monday. And if we start to see a dip down, maybe at market open, and there's some distribution, we've been seeing some manipulation at market open. I mean, it was just the other day, we saw a big dip right here at 6 a.m. and then a huge recovery. And that's very common. Like we could look, if you look down the other day, it's like right here around market open, we saw this big dip around 6 a.m. and then it recovered 8%. I mean, that's pretty common at market open. That's why we trade every morning at market open. You can see it right here as well. Same thing. So right at like 6:30 right here, it was selling down and then recovered 6%. So those are the types of swings that we have to watch for. And honestly, they've been happening consistently. So we're going to see that maybe sell down kicks in here, maybe get a recovery there at market open. But nevertheless, we'll be watching it, see if there's any. We'll watch the London session, but really what we're looking for is some distribution, and possibly if there's no manipulation and it still just kind of steadily holds and sells down and starts to recover, then maybe we get some accumulation stage here, which is that 10 to potentially 15% margin for profit, which in that instance would put us in a nice position to make some money. So we'll be watching it to see if any opportunities present themselves on Monday. If you guys want to join me in that daily live trading session, you get fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and also financials, like how we break it down. But on top of that, you get our targets for the week from top tech companies and AI companies. And you get this free t-shirt that I'm wearing here, our Stockmate t-shirt. It's pretty cool. It's got a logo on the front and back, and they're pretty comfortable. And if you're investing in quantum, space stocks, or AI, that's what I specifically focus on in Stockmates. And we go live, it's pretty early in the morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But if you want to be there every day, I guess it's easier on the East Coast. But Monday through Friday, we're there. If you want to watch me trade live, see my entries, see my exits, it's the second link in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Big Bear AI down below too. And if I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.